Why am I talking about a $280 control paddle and a paddle that was introduced in its original specs 3 years ago? In pickleball years, the Halo control is ancient history. The Luxx can't compete with any of the more powerful paddles that Selkirk has introduced of late, at least not from the firepower perspective. And guess what? None of these factors matter. I'll say it again for the people in the back. Power is not the most important factor in paddles. Far from it. So why are control paddles still relevant in 2025? And why do I think the new Luxx and the Halo Control XL are still two of the best ones out there? Let's get into it. If you're not aware, I spend a lot of my time coaching pickleball. I work with clients in a huge skill range. People just starting out, all the way to 4.0 plus players who have goals to break the 5.0 plus barrier. I see the full gamut of physical and mental gifts from my students. For some of them, they have the athletic ability and the touch right off the bat to be able to effectively handle a power paddle. I've been recommending the SLK era to a lot of those clients lately. But for every client or friend that I know that's using a power paddle right now, at the amateur level, there are just as many players whose games would for sure improve if they were to switch to a paddle with a bit less power. That's really all a control paddle is anyway. It's just a paddle where the power and the pop metrics don't outstrip the amount of spin that the paddle can produce. I understand why control paddle is an industry standard name, but it just doesn't do the best job of describing what these paddles actually do. The paddle review I'm going to give you for these two paddles is anecdotal, so I'm going to avoid giving you a bunch of tech specs in favor of several real-world examples that I've seen recently. If you want the best technical breakdown of the Luxx, as always, I would suggest that you head over to John Q's channel. I'll link the video below and up here somewhere too if I can remember how to do that. I'm somebody that really focuses on feel in paddles, and I'm much more interested in how a paddle performs out in the wild under various conditions, and with a lot of different court surfaces and a range of balls. While I definitely pay some amount of attention to what folks in the reviewer space have to say, I need to get a paddle in my hand and see how it performs under real-world conditions to figure out if it's going to work for me or not. To my mind, the Luxx 2.0 and the Halo Control XL are two of the plushest, best feeling paddles out there. In a recent podcast, I heard Scott Fliegelman mention that several people had reached out wondering why he was using an old-school Carbon 1 paddle in his senior pro events. He's a sponsored Carbon athlete and one of the top senior pros in the world. He's also a former Division I tennis player and has been teaching and playing pickleball at the highest levels for years. People were really used to seeing him using a True Foam Genesis in the one shape, and they were really puzzled by his choosing to use a different paddle all of a sudden. So here's the answer, that in certain conditions, namely indoors, using a Selkirk Pro S1 ball and at altitude, Scott was finding that the power and the pop on his True Foam were just too much. So when he switched all the way back, if you will, to a straight-up Gen 1 paddle with no foam or other modern conveniences, he felt he was able to play the kind of game that he plays in a much easier fashion. And this is somebody with a 5.8 duper. So if this is something that Scott found to be true, might it have some merit for the rest of us? Yeah, I tend to think so. I ran a Selkirk paddle demo night a few nights ago, and I saw this exact kind of real-world scenario play out, and it totally reinforced why I think paddles like the Luxx and the Halo Control are still very much relevant, even in today's faster version of pickleball. We had a range of experience levels in the players there, 4 or 5 plus players down to probably 3.5, 3.25 or so, and I got to hit with all of those different players. Something I'll point out that's just as important, if not more important though than the overall level of the participants, was the huge range in play styles. Some of these folks play a very aggressive style, while others are somewhat more of a hybrid or all-court kind of style, and at least one of them has a masterful control game. Here's a breakdown of 5 of the participants and what paddle ended up best complementing their individual play style. First, we have Lisa. Lisa's an aggressive player who uses a lot of spin, especially on serves and drops, and she has speed and depth on a lot of her shots. She also happens to be just over 5 feet tall and is a small lady. The best paddle fit for her ended up being the SLK era Power Elongated. Second, we have Rich. Rich has an aggressive offensive style of playing, he's got a great topspin serve, and he prefers to drive most of his thirds. Rich is really agile, and he has got a wicked backhand punch speed up at the kitchen. And he also likes to attack a lot of high balls from the transition zone with, he's got a very compact swinging volley that's very effective. For Rich, the best fit ended up being the Luxx 2.0 Invicta, and we had that one weighted up to around 8.4 ounces. Now third, we have Kelly. Kelly comes from an extensive tennis background, she's got an eagle eye for angles, and she's an extremely strategic player. Kelly prioritizes a controlled aggression when she uses aggression, and she really loves to take people's power and diffuse it, and when she can do that, she often hits a winner outright off of that diffused shot. For Kelly, the best fit ended up being the original Luxx in actually the epic shape, even though she's somebody that tends to use elongated shapes most of the time. Fourth, we have Ken. Ken has no racket sports background at all, but he's very athletic, he moves really well, and he has a really heavy side spin table tennis style serve that he can move around the box really effectively. Ken prefers to drop over drive to get to the non-volley zone typically, but he will also drive the ball if he gets a short serve return. Ken ended up having the best fit be the Halo Control XL. Lastly, we have KD. KD is really tall and skinny, lots of wingspan, and he's got a pretty extensive tennis and table tennis background. He has high-level lefty kind of topspin, love the lefties, loves to drive the ball and find angles on unsuspecting victims. So KD's best paddle overall was the Project Labs 008 Invicta, and he's now actually gone in for the Boomstik. So what is it that we're seeing in all of these examples? I know anecdote is not evidence, but you might have noticed that the best fit was tilted more to the control side than the power side for actually most of the players. And this is not just for players who play a more control-oriented style. I was really lucky in this lab setting to be able to see each of these folks use multiple paddles right in a row while I was hitting with them, both in drilling kind of scenarios and in actual gameplay. And it wasn't just me noticing what fit each of these players the best. All the other players were seeing the same things that I was. So why did the control paddles fit more of the players best? One comment that I kept hearing over and over throughout the night was that the Luxx 2.0 and the Halo Control both have kind of a rubbery feel off the face, similar actually to a table tennis paddle. When I heard this, I thought this was a really great way to describe the ball response on these paddles, and it was a description that I hadn't ever actually heard before. What I think they were describing is both the way that these paddles pocket the ball, and also the way the grit on the surface interacts with the ball to produce a lot of spin. These are the biggest reasons that I recommend both the Luxx 2.0 and the Halo Control to people. Both of these paddles get very good spin, and especially if you add a bit of weight to them, you're going to get plenty of plow through on full swings. You do have to work a bit harder to produce big power on short swings, but there's plenty of power and pop to finish points if you've got decent technique. Whether you pick the Luxx or the Halo Control XL depends on several things. If you're not a fan of edgeless paddles, you can't stomach the price of the Luxx, or you really like the very slightly longer handle for a two-handed backhand, I would go with the Halo. What does the extra $100+ get you in the Luxx? More power for sure, lower swing weight, a more durable grit surface, better spin right out of the box, and a thermoform construction which will hold up longer. And you also get the limited lifetime warranty that Selkirk offers on their premium paddles. If you don't mind spending more, I'd say that overall the Luxx is actually a better performer. The Luxx really has one of the most unique feels of any paddle out there because of all the tech used in it, but that complicated build comes at a monetary cost. If you're somebody that sometimes plays indoors, sometimes outdoors, maybe with a variety of different balls, and for sure if you play in tournaments, I would consider adding a paddle like the Halo or the Luxx to your quiver. I keep both in my bag along with my usual era power. While I may have no issues sailing balls in rec play with a very powerful paddle, right, who am I kidding? You know what I mean. Sailing maybe only a few balls in rec play is what I should have said. But tournaments can be a very different situation entirely. I've had good results in tournaments on a very hot day with the Selkirk Pro S1 ball and a power paddle, And I've also needed to switch to a Gen 1 paddle with a Franklin ball if I'm having one of my kind of too much grip strength days. It's just good to have options in your bag. And since I'm sure somebody will ask if you're still watching at this point, yes, I've hit the Boomstik. Yes, it's a very special paddle, and yes, I actually really enjoyed using it. I will have a unit sometime soon, hopefully, and once I've gotten some hours on it, I'll kind of do a typical Matt Bell, what does it feel like, not so technical kind of review of that paddle. So until then, stay tuned, and I'll see you out on the courts.